G'day everyone, my name's Lockie and this is the first video for my new YouTube channel, the DownUndernaut. I wanted to create this channel to inform and get people excited about everything that's happening in the Australian space industry. I've followed space news, particularly on the commercial side, or new space 2.0 for the last 10 years or so. So you think of the likes of Elon Musk's SpaceX or Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin and the smaller companies that are making space cheaper and more accessible to get a lot more people involved. Now, like I said, I've followed it for the last 10 years or so, but I felt like I haven't heard that much about what's going on in the Australian space industry. Turns out there's a lot going on. The government's getting involved to enable it now, and there is a flourishing space industry that's coming through. So wanted to talk about what I was discovering and share that with you and get people excited about the Australian space industry. So why is it I felt that there wasn't really that much going on in the Australian space industry? There's a lot going on, but we've started from a little bit behind the ball. I'll take you back to 2008 when Australia was the only OECD country, which is a group of the rich developed nations in the world, that didn't have a national space agency, excluding Iceland. So from 2009, the Senate issued a report which recommended that Australia immediately develop its own space agency. We were missing opportunities at the time by not having one, and certainly we would be in the future. So in 2009, the Space Policy Unit funded the Australian Space Research Program over the next 3 years, which would look into how we would bring this about and what it would do. Fast forward a few years to 2017 at the International Astronautical Congress in Adelaide, South Australia, the Australian government was able to announce that as of 2018, the Australian Space Agency would be going ahead. Fast forward another year to June 2018, the Australian Space Agency is launched with 27 million in seed funding over the first 4 years from 2018 and another 15 million in 2019 to get them started. Not a heap of money, but certainly something to get us going. At the helm of the Australian Space Agency was Dr. Megan Clark. Now, she was the CEO of CSIRO from 2009 to 2014, so I feel like we're in pretty good hands. Now, I want to take a quick moment just to show you the logo for the Australian Space Agency. They've done a fantastic job with the branding of this. It might look like a bunch of dots just whacked together, but the truth is that it's a combination of a bunch of different constellations that the Australian Indigenous people would use to navigate and tell stories. So they've brought a bunch of those together for a logo, and it's a fantastic way to sort of encapsulate Australian culture and history. And they've done a really good job. So check out the link in the description below. It's only a minute long and well worth having a look. Okay, so we've got the Australian Space Agency finally. What are they actually going to do? What's their job? So it's important to note that this isn't going to be another NASA or Roscosmos where the Australian government's going to be launching massive rockets into space. It's more of a civil space agency. So the ASA's role will revolve more around, space policy. There'll obviously be coordination of space activities, so managing the airspace and safety regulation. But it'll be more about, working with Aussie companies in getting into space and getting technology that they create into space. There's a lot of support for applying this spatial technology across the other sectors, so encouraging the space industry to work with agriculture to, benefit industries that are really going to help Australia. And there's also an element of just inspiring the next generation, of getting people into space and building up this sector so that we can make a big impact. An example of a similar national space agency that's going to be doing what the ASA is doing is, funnily enough, New Zealand. They had the New Zealand Space Agency created in 2016, and that was almost exclusively for a company named Rocket Lab, which wanted to start launching rockets from the southeastern coast of New Zealand. They've been doing that now for the last 2 years, and I think they've had 9 suborbital launches so far this year, and some of those launches are getting $5 million a pop for getting satellites up into space. So that's what the Australian Space Agency is looking at least initially. The Kiwis are killing it, so we gotta step up our game and get involved with them. Cool. So we've got an Australian Space Agency. We've got an idea of what they're going to do, how they're going to act, and it's probably going to look similar to New Zealand, at least initially. So let's get into the exciting stuff, at least for me, and that's talking about launching rockets up into space. Now, before we get started on that, I'll show you this picture and give you an idea of what I'm talking about when I'm saying launching CubeSats and nanosats into space. So if you look up the top here, these are your large satellites. So this is what your big US companies in China and Russia are launching on the Falcon Heavy. That's not what we're going to be doing. We're looking all the way down here, past the Rhino, Buffalo line, at the CubeSat and nanosatellite regions. So something 1 to 2 kilos generally, up to 10, about the size of a duck, but because we're the Australian Space Agency, we'll call this an IVASat. Okay, so if we're only launching IVASats into space, then yeah, rocket launch is probably not going to look so much like this. And a little bit more like this. Okay, so there's a lot of cool stuff that we can do with these size satellites, and it's a huge industry that enables a lot of companies to try some new technology. As you saw from that last video, which is actually the most recent rocket launch from Australia. That happened in 2018 from a company in Queensland called Black Sky Aeronautics. So pretty big moment for them, but as you can see, it's pretty much just a little stick that you can fire at the back of the ute. And the reason they're doing that from a farm out near Goondiwindi somewhere is we don't actually have a spaceport. If we did have a spaceport, we could be doing what New Zealand's doing with the Rocket Lab company. I'll show you one of their launches so you can get an idea.
3, 2, 1, 0. Lift up.
Alright, so still not as big as one of the Falcon Heavy launches, but that's pretty serious. That's a serious facility they've got going on there. Now, Australia, we don't have that yet, but a company called Equatorial Launch Australia has secured land rights. They've got everything in action to build a facility up in Arnhem Land, up in the top of Northern Territory, in 2020. And they've actually secured a contract to get a US government launch from that site in 2020. That's huge. So we're already securing international launches. We've got a spaceport on the way, and we'll be ready to do some more of those more serious launches from there shortly. We've got a bunch of companies in Australia that are building rockets, the aforementioned BSA, as well as Gilmore Space Technologies. So they're also based in Queensland. So once we get that spaceport up and running, we get some rockets up there, things are really going to start kicking off and get interesting. So that's the tier of rocket launches we're looking at the moment. Cheap, small launches to get these small cube, nano, or bin chicken size satellites up and doing what they need to do. Now, because it's cheaper, there's a lot of really cool companies and universities that are doing all kinds of research programs, from monitoring agricultural crops so that they can be more predictive about how the harvest is going to look and the impact of different fertilizers, to say networking. An example is SpaceX is developing the Starlink program, which is about up to 4,000 satellites all networked together to provide high bandwidth internet anywhere in the world from low Earth orbit. That's all I've really got for this first video for now. Thanks for watching so far. It's an exciting time for the Australian space industry. We've had a lot of great companies doing a lot of great things with the smaller satellite technology, but they've been working with the US because we haven't had anything of our own. We've now got a homegrown Australian Space Agency. We've got a launch site being built up in the Northern Territory next year. It's a really young industry, but it's burgeoning, and I feel like it's going to kick off and grow exponentially over the next couple of years. Yeah, if you're interested in space, please, comment below on any topics you'd like. Also, give me some feedback on what you liked or didn't like about this video, and I'll be making some more videos soon. I really want to talk about some of the applications for these cube, nano, bin chicken sats that we're launching up into space, and some of the players that we've got in the Australian field. I'm still learning about it myself, but yeah, there's some really cool companies doing some really cool stuff. So plenty to talk about, plenty to learn. Please tune in next time, and yeah, thanks for watching.